Welcome to The Good Pod. Today's podcast is presented by Dr. Barry Napier. If you'd like more information, please visit our website, christiandoctrine.com.
A lesson from Job's wife. In 2021, our Sunday meetings studied the amazing book of Job. Chapter 2 relates the horrendous advice of Job's wife to her husband after he lost just about everything. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. That's in Job 2:9. Now probably the wife suffered just as horribly as Job, when all the animal stock was stolen and their children died suddenly. It was all done by Satan. Here she asks if Job thought it was worth suffering and being holy, when all he needed to do was reject Jehovah and curse him. At least then God would put him out of his misery by killing him. Now Job responded immediately with a rebuke in chapter 2 verse 11. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speak. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? In all this did not Job sin with his lips. So far, so good. Job's wife, no doubt wanting Job to suffer no more, suggested he blaspheme Jehovah so that he would strike him down dead, thus alleviating the earthly grief and physical pain. Job replied that she was a fool. God can send distress and woes as well as good things. So in all this did not Job sin with his lips. Job retained his holy trust, while his wife wrongfully suggested ending his life by divine wrath. But there is far more contained in the woman's words. Death won't end anything. In reality, the wife recommended suicide. Job could cause God to bring death upon him by being blasphemous. Like so many today who commit suicide, thinking it will end their troubles, she was very wrong. Suicide would not end his suffering, it would have extended it forever and ever. After our time in this world, we will either enter hell or heaven, depending on our salvific states. While still on this earth, we can rectify problems, or at least rest in God's mercy and grace to suffer with faith. But if we blaspheme against the Lord, who will judge us after our death, well, inviting his wrath is not a very good idea. People at that time who believed in Jehovah also saw death as the gateway to Sheol, or Hades, where the righteous enter a special part of the underworld until called by God to heaven. The unrighteous stayed there as grey spirits in continual misery. So the wife's advice was hardly conducive to Job's well-being. Today, some who experience overwhelming grief or fear kill themselves, thinking their low mood will end and all will be over. But their loved ones and friends will suffer for the rest of their lives because of their selfish decision. And suicide does not end their suffering, but continues and worsens it into the life after this one, if they are unsaved. So, giving in brings more woes. Job was under a trial, not from God, but from Satan. Satan wanted to break him totally so he would curse God. Then Satan would win his argument against God. If Job had cursed God and lived, his conscience would forever be racked with guilt and fear. It is even possible that once Job gave in, Satan would have given him his health back. But in so doing, Job would have lost his integrity and holiness. And so the grace shown to him for being the most righteous man on earth would be removed. Any blessings he once had would disappear, so troubles would mount up and would not go away. And of course, losing integrity proves superficiality. It is obvious from my way of thinking that though Job lived an amazingly pure life and everyone knew of his faith, this did not rub off on his wife. Perhaps boringly to some who know me, I always counsel that we each stand alone before God in our salvation, faith, behaviour and beliefs and sin. A man might be like Job and be utterly righteous, but it does not mean any of his family have the same holy mind and heart. I had one person close to me say I should bend the rules by omitting certain things when I teach, so that others would not feel uncomfortable. Rather, I should use a different approach for them. What ignorant error! In Scripture, this is the condemned sin of being a respecter of persons. Huge numbers of pastors and preachers use this tactic so as to retain as many fee-paying Christians as possible. It is why many omit some truths, so others will not feel uncomfortable or offended. And of course they'd leave taking their offerings with them. If I submitted to such a demand, my integrity would be shot through, and my ministry would be worthless and superficial. Our aim, in fact, should be to mar the innocence of unholy life. Then there's misunderstanding God and His Word. The wife obviously had a much lighter understanding of God than Job, whose mind and heart were continually rooted in Jehovah. Job's faith and beliefs were not those of his wife, though she was married to him. As I said, each of us stands alone before the Lord, and each has a measure of knowledge and understanding with their own levels of response to God. Sadly, many are just like yes men, always appearing to agree but inwardly not. In Job's case, his wife's lack of true understanding could have driven him over the edge, but even when under extreme duress, he kept his trust in Jehovah. How many of us, including me, could act this way? Curse and die. Or do we leave this world under the anger of God? Only it doesn't work. And when we thus give in, Satan is the only winner as he chalks up yet another failed faith. There are times when I talk tough to fellow believers. This is because they do not respond to softer talk and encouragement. And if tough talk does not have the desired effect, I will stop counsel until the person repents. There is so much more we can glean from Job's wife's wrong advice, but maybe you can now see a glimmer of this. Never think, for instance, a pastor's wife or the wife of a preacher is as noble and holy as her husband. Yet, traditionally, the pastor's wife is always given an elevated spiritual status. A pastor's wife might be just as spiritually able, and I sincerely hope so, but not necessarily. It is this kind of thinking that traditionally allows the wife to lead women's meetings or to give spiritual counsel. Yet she might be just as warped or misled as Job's wife. Or she might not have the spiritual gift church members think she has. Just remember that a pastor's wife stands alone in her spiritual status before God. She might be a wonderful mate to her husband and will shine brightly. On the other hand, she might be quite ignorant, or worse, she would be as useless as Job's wife. In spiritual terms, Job stood alone in this world, and he happened to be the most holy of men in his day. But his wife was not. They lived together, raised children, but the wife was wrong in her advice. So never assume the wife of a holy man is just as holy. Hopefully she will be, but never assume.